The decade of the 60s is one of the most turbulent with regards to social and cultural changes of almost any decade in the 20th century. Virtually every aspect of American society was being questioned. This first slide summarizes just a few of the events that took place, mostly in the latter half of the decade. There were several movements that promoted peace, tolerance, and a hope for a better world. A few of these events are listed at the top of this first slide. But, much like the viewpoint on drug use discussed in last week's lecture, some of these ideals were unrealistic. The events listed at the bottom of the slide are just a few of the chaotic moments of the 1960s. Your text covers these events in more detail, but it is safe to say that although the early 60s was still a bit naive and the music reflected this innocence, the 60s does not end well. In this lecture, some of the music that reflects this tumultuous decade is examined. After Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, the leadership for African Americans still not receiving equal rights changes dramatically. So does the music. While Berry Gordy promoted integration and a formulaic approach to appealing to a widest audience possible, the new African American sound reaffirmed what is meant to be black in the United States in the late 60s. This new genre is called soul music. The use of the term soul is not new for popular music, and in fact has its origins in jazz. But during the mid to late 60s, the term was acquired and embraced by many in the African American community to represent uninhibited self-expression. This music did not have the self-imposed censorship that Gordy espoused in the Motown sound. Political topics were not avoided, nor were expressions of African American pride. If you recall during the lecture on Motown that Marvin Gaye experienced a transformation to his sound during this time as well. His music after 1968 would fit in this soul category. The four artists represent the soul sound of the late 60s. Ray Charles is a difficult artist to put firmly into any one category, but for the sake of academic study, he will be our first artist in the soul genre. He will be joined by soul brother number 1, James Brown, Otis Redding, and the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. All four of these artists have a strong gospel background and intensity to their music that gives it a definite soul or swagger. Ray Charles has a diverse style that is part jazz, part country, part blues, part gospel, and part rhythm and blues, that he is truly one of the most difficult artists to categorize. But what his music does have is passion, and that is soulful. He was known for taking standard gospel tunes and turning them into blues, which scandalized him to many in the religious community. The Academy Award-winning film Ray tells his story very well. The actor Jamie Foxx won an Oscar for his starring role as Ray Charles. James Brown is credited with inventing funk music, which is a subgenre of soul music. He has influenced countless other artists, not only with his passionate singing, but with his flamboyant and charismatic stage performances. No doubt artists like Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson learned quite a few moves from this great soul artist. Be sure and watch the video in this week's block on James Brown and his signature moves. Otis Redding is one of several artists who will capture national audiences from his performance at the Monterey Pop Festival of 1967. Some critics claim this festival provided exposure and boosted the careers of more artists than the Woodstock Festival of '69 did. Tragically, Otis Redding died in a plane crash just 3 days after recording what would become his biggest hit, "Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay." The last artist in this category is Aretha Franklin, whose music helped cross over to wider audiences. A daughter of a minister, Franklin's style is deeply rooted in the gospel tradition. She is often listed on Rolling Stone magazine's list of the greatest singers as #1. Please note that one of her earliest hits, Respect, was written by Otis Redding, who recorded his own version as well. The song Respect unintentionally becomes an anthem for many people during the late 1960s. African Americans wanted respect, women wanted respect, hippies, soldiers, and many other facets of society demanded more respect from their leaders. The next genre, psychedelic blues, also helped convey the times. Recall that for this course we are separating acid rock from psychedelic blues, although some textbooks and scholars do not. Both genres are heavily influenced by LSD, but they do have their differences as well. In general, the artists included here in the psychedelic blues category are less focused on the message of their songs, but rather on the virtuosity and strength of their instrumental abilities. Psychedelic blues is more heavily based in the blues than acid rock, and in general a more hard and harsh sound. Please note that Led Zeppelin is included here with many question marks after their name. The reasons why will be explained in a later lecture. The Yardbirds are a revolving door, blues-based band for what would become some of rock's greatest guitarists. Eric Clapton played for the band early in his career and earned the title of Guitar God by his fans. Both Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page would play for the band until Beck departed. All three of these artists go on to have very successful careers with other groups and as soloists. Eric Clapton played with Derek and the Dominos, Cream, the John Mayall Group, and other gigs. Jeff Beck formed the Jeff Beck Group and continues to play. And Jimmy Page went on to form Led Zeppelin and play lead guitar until they disbanded. Cream, one of rock's first three-man supergroups, had a motto that helps define the psychedelic blues genre. Forget the message, forget the lyrics, just play. So much emphasis had been put on song lyrics and meaning in the 60s that to some rock had lost its strength as an instrumental genre. If you recall from earlier lectures, Dick Dale helped surf rock become rock's first instrumental genre. Now, groups like Cream were embracing the importance of instrumental virtuosity. Unfortunately, it is this virtuosity and some of the volatile personalities that come with it that kept Cream from staying together as a band. Arguably, the most influential guitarist in all of rock and roll is Jimi Hendrix. This is an enormous statement, but few, if any, still disagree. Hendrix brought the frustrations of his own life out through his playing. He was extremely skilled and could play either left-handed or right-handed without restringing his guitar. He was blessed with very large hands that allowed him to sound like 2 or 3 guitarists at one time. Like Otis Redding and others, Hendrix will capture national audiences at the Monterey Pop Festival of 1967. It is at this historic festival where Hendrix destroys his guitar and lights it on fire. Be sure and watch the video excerpt in this week's box on this event. Unfortunately, like so many of the young rock stars of the 60s, Hendrix's addictions and personal demons caught up with him. He died from an overdose of sleeping pills and alcohol at the age of 27. One must wonder how his career would have evolved if he had lived longer. The last artist in this genre is Janis Joplin, who expressed, like no other woman rocker in the 60s, her lifetime of pain, frustrations, and the bullying she experienced through her voice. Her idols were the great men and women blues singers from the Delta where she grew up. Women rock singers had many more hurdles to jump than their male colleagues. Up until the mid-19th century, women were strongly deterred from any music making that required their faces to be distorted or ugly. This included singing. The kind of impassioned, heart-wrenching singing Janis Joplin displayed was completely opposed to these presumptions regarding women and femininity. Although the women's movement of the 60s shed many of these stigmas regarding women in music, women still had many double standards to fight. Rock was viewed as a boys' club. Joplin's uninhibited style has influenced countless future women rock singers. Joplin lived her life hard and fast, and she too was found dead in a hotel room from a heroin overdose at the age of 27. A lecture on the important rock events of the late 60s would not be complete without at least a mention of the very successful free concert Woodstock. The over 3-hour documentary that captures this event is an excellent film with historic performances by Jimi Hendrix, The Who, Janis Joplin, Joan Baez, Santana, Jefferson Airplane, and many, many others. The Kent State murders cap off the 60s with violence and death. The events of this tragedy are well documented in your Rockin' in Time textbook, beginning around page 198. The violence and riots were captured by the award-winning photographers at Life magazine. And it was this photojournalistic spread that inspired Neil Young to write the song Ohio. He wrote it in less than 2 weeks after the event. The song's structure is simple, but the message is not. Young wrote the song very quickly. The tin soldiers Young refers to are the little green army men, made out of tin in the 1960s, that many young boys played with as children. The photos of the National Guardsmen resembled these toy army men. The lyric, "We're finally on our own," expresses what most young people feel when they first enter college life: freedom. The line, "should have been done long ago," was supposedly a direct quote made by one of the guardsmen. This event sparked some of the most violent and widespread riots and demonstrations across colleges and universities in United States history. Young's song "Ohio" is an excellent example of how a rock musician expresses the world around them. It is simple, but direct, much like the way a bluesman might express emotion.